welcome to Cindy's Library. I am Cindy, and today I want to talk about Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. I picked this up for my Release Society reading group and I could not put it down. So that tells you something about it. And I better put it down myself since it's rather heavy. It's over 600 pages. But I read it in 3 days. That's how drawn in I was. So the frame story is there is this ancient Greek tale that's about a guy who is not very happy with his position in life. It's not very, well, position's the wrong word. He's not very happy with his life though. He gets turned into a donkey and then a fish and then a bird. All the while he's searching for this magical land where everything is perfect, all dreams and desires are granted. And through the story, we have bits of this story which now I'm not actually sure if it's an actual story or just made up to be a real Greek story. It seems pretty authentic to me, but a good author could do that. But yeah, the story about this story is that in the frame it supposedly was found rather recently, and experts are working at translating it and trying to figure out everything they can about that. And so we get snippets of that and occasionally a bit of commentary too in between the meat of the story. Now, hold on to your horses. This is a complicated story, although it's always clearly marked out. Each chapter is the same thing, whatever viewpoint, whatever time it is. Well, generally speaking. So, we've got 5 different points of view, 3 different timelines. So we've got 2 different points of view around the time of the Fourth Crusade. Anna is a girl. She lives in a house for women who embroider, since she is an orphan, but she's no good at embroidery and she is curious and adventurous and actually learns reading from an old guy who knows how to read ancient Greek. And she is there for the sack of Constantinople, and she manages to save the manuscript of this story that is from the frame narrative. Meanwhile, we have Omer, who's kind of dragged off by the invading army because he has 2 huge, beautiful oxen and they want him to help to the siege of Constantinople, and his path crosses with Anna. Flash forward to more modern times. We have the story of Zeno. I think he is Greek American. And so we start from when he is a boy. His father was in World War II. He serves in the Korean War and was a prisoner of war for a time. Made friends with a guy there, British chap, who was a school teacher and who absolutely loved his Greek. And so he taught Zeno something about Greek. And after he retires, he gets really into that. And when this story is discovered, he starts translating it and even making it into a play for some children he meets at the library. It is also the story of Sylvester. Now, at the point where Zeno is making the Greek tale into a play for children, He's a very old man in his 80s, I think. Well, this time Sylvester is a young man. I'm not sure if he's even out of high school yet. A very troubled young man, and his path crosses with Zeno, and their lives are affected by each other. Then, sometime, maybe 100 years or so into the future, we have Constance, who is on a spaceship and who was told this Greek story by her father. And she is, well, due to circumstances, she ends up in a locked room, and in between eating and sleeping and doing lessons set for her by the ship's AI, she does research on this story, trying to figure out everything about it. And so Cloud Cuckoo Land is a story. Well, it is a story about trying to find home. Anna and her sister Maria are orphans, and while they are grateful to be in the women's house, Anna at least does not feel at home there. Omar, or Omir, I should say, is dragged away from his home, rather against his will. Not that he says anything, he didn't dare, but he did not want to leave his home. Um, and Zeno, oh, he has not felt at home for a long time. But making doing this translation of this Greek story and making it into a play for children, I'm not sure if the library is home for him or not. Maybe it is, but he's definitely more alive doing that than he has been for years. And part of Sylvester's problem is he doesn't rarely feels like he is at home either. The rare exceptions is when he's alone in the wilderness. And Constance, well, she discovers that the spaceship may not be quite as much of a home for her as she initially thinks. And so she needs a new home. I would say another major theme of this book is the value of stories. It's this Greek story that Anna finds, it helps her. And later it helps Omir as well. And like I said, it brings Zeno back to life after a very quiet, subdued existence for most of his life. And not sure it changes Sylvester directly as much, but it still affects him. And it changes everything for Constance. Stories are powerful things, and it's interesting to see the transmission of this story. It was almost destroyed in the siege of Constantinople, but it was saved and then lost for centuries. And then people are starting to try and piece it together again in Zena and Sylvester's time. And it's kind of been lost again, but there are enough traces that Constance can find some information about it. So stories can be persistent things, but they can also be very fragile things. I mean, yes, Anna did save this one Greek story from the sack of Constantinople. She found it in a dilapidated library in an old monastery where a lot of it had already been ruined. And granted, a lot of what she finds when she goes there are basically things like receipts or day to day things like that. But just imagine what was lost there. Oh, interesting to think about that. Think about all that was lost during the Viking raids when monasteries were destroyed and all of the books they had, or Alexandria, or the burning of the books in China. Imagine what we would have today if those books were saved. It's amazing to think about. And miraculously, some books actually do manage to be passed down through the years. And Greek stories are certainly not among the least of those. So, anyway, started off the year strongly with Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. Greatly enjoyed it. Excuse me. And I can definitely suggest it, especially for book lovers and those interested in historical novels. So, yep, that's all I have. Love to hear what you thought of this book. If you have read it yourself or if you decide to read it, I'd be quite interested in knowing your thoughts. So, thank you so much for stopping by. I truly do appreciate it. That's all that I have for today. So, until next time, I hope we all stay safe and healthy. And as always, happy reading!